All right, well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here on this Gamma Monday. This is the second of the series, which was very much inspired by Amalia, actually. So I'm thrilled that she's our special guest today. She's going to be guiding us on a beautiful journey. I'm so excited for this. I'm so thrilled to see how around the world people are combining Gamma with their special gifts and codes and healing modalities and creative modalities, and it's very powerful. And personally, I've known Amalia for over 10 years. I believe we met in Florida, and at the time she had a studio, a Pilates studio also, and she was sharing her wisdom with women, with people to get really grounded and embodied and really clear in their conscious well-being and health, and very authentic and aligned. And she was one of my first students in the Gamma Breath training. And here we are over a decade later. She's in Mexico, I'm in Costa Rica, and we're getting to collaborate. And I've had the blessing of experiencing a one-on-one session with her recently that was very instrumental in some big breakthroughs that I'm having personally in my life, with my self-care, with my authenticity, with entering more into my feminine rooted grounding power, with focusing on healing some dance injuries from years ago. And it's actually even spurred on a new chapter with dance, which I'll share more about at some other time. I'm also in her rooted weekly movement and exercise class, which is fantastic. And I'm so excited just from seeing her description of what she's going to share today. This is going to be exponentially powerful. So I'll pass it over to you, beautiful Amalia. I'm so glad we're all here gathered for this experience.
Thank you, Raquel. Thank you guys all for coming. It's really nice to see everybody here. Raquel gave me a great introduction, so I appreciate it. My name is Amalia Maria Lee, and I am a movement and breath therapist, holistic health practitioner, and I founded the Root Method. And I'll get into what that means a little bit more, but before we begin, I'd like to invite you guys to mute your phone unless you're wanting to chime in intentionally, please, or mute your computer. And if you're not familiar with gamma breathing, I just want you to know that I'll be guiding you through a number of different kinds of breaths. But when we are doing gamma breath, there's a bit of shorthand where we say slow, medium, or fast. And slow breaths are about 5 seconds. Medium breaths are about 3 seconds. Fast is 1 second. And I'll be guiding you whether to breathe through your nose or mouth. And we're trying to take full breaths, whether it's 5 seconds or 3 seconds, we're trying to fill the tank. Not aggressively, but just so you know, it's not a small breath for one, it's still a full breath for those fast breaths. And so we begin with our first gamma breath just to ground. And that will just help us to receive this information from a place of open neutrality and higher level of cognition. Just we make better neural connections when we utilize this breath. So before we start breathing, I am inviting you to close your eyes. And just let your body breathe you for a little bit. Possibly place your healing hands on your body in a way that helps you to feel grounded, or allow them to rest, palms up, in a receptive posture. So I always take time for this whenever I have a gathering, whether it's a women's circle or a workshop, because we are expert travelers. We are constantly traveling through time and space with our technology, with the technology of our brain and body. We are multitasking and projecting and imagining, and it's all an amazing capacity that we have. But this capacity to pull everything back in is sometimes a little bit less practiced. And we have just as much power when we pull all of those cords, all of that energy and intention back into our body. So I want you to envision all of the thoughts and places and times that you're projecting or have been projecting into. And I want you to envision that energy drawing back into the body. Contain all of your energy and attention begin to notice subtle sensations. Notice your surroundings are safe, quiet, and the sensory cortex can feel safe to feel subtlety. So we have to numb so much when we're multitasking and overwhelmed and overstimulated. And now we can intentionally notice our safe, quiet space so that we can begin to tune into those subtle 1, 2s, and 3s, the messages in our body, the information coming through, and just notice it at first. Notice the frequency, the vibration that your body is holding. And even just the shift that comes with paying attention, pulling all that energy back in, and how that allows the system, the nervous system to recalibrate, the breath to recalibrate without any additional direction. So we'll begin a basic gamma breath. All breaths in this series are medium 3-second breaths. Beginning with in-mouth, out-mouth. In-mouth, out-nose. In-nose, out-nose. In-nose, out-mouth. In-mouth, out-mouth. In-mouth, out-nose. In-nose, out-nose. In-nose, out-mouth. Mouth, mouth. Mouth, nose. Nose, nose. Nose, mouth. Mouth, mouth. Then I invite you to just rest with the eyes closed if you're able, so that you can tune back into the subtle frequency of your body and notice any shift that you've created through the breath. You might notice a little bit more sparkle on the surface of your skin, a little bit more alive inside the body, the mind, feeling a bit more focused, a bit more calm. Gamma really is beautiful at creating a space of neutrality so that we can receive new information and old information in a new way, in a way that is most easily assimilated for your highest good at this moment. So when you are ready to slowly join the space, softly open the eyes. So thank you for joining me in that. That always really helps me arrive fully in the space and in the process. And I believe it creates coherence for us as a group. even for those who are joining in the replay. And I would like to tell you a little bit more about the premise of this journey. So as I mentioned, I founded a method called the Root Method, and it's basically a body literacy, female body literacy method. It's to help guide women in knowing their bodies better, in a literal way and an energetic way. And in that process of knowing and feeling more empowered, because we know our body, we are able to rewrite the stories sometimes that are not serving us about our bodies. And the kind of overarching one that I really focus on in the beginning is the idea that our body is regularly broken and needs fixing. Like every time we feel sick or we are in pain, that there's something wrong with our machine, like it's a car and it needs a new part. And instead, and I believe we all kind of hold both of these beliefs at the same time. So I don't believe necessarily that what I'm presenting is a new idea, but one that I want to bring to the forefront and activate with you guys. So what I want to bring to the forefront is the idea that our body is an oracle, that our body is not just a flesh suit that houses our soul, but it is a divine antenna that is always sending and receiving signals. And that the more we can be tuned into our subtleties, the better that we can speak the language of the body and discern what it is speaking to us. And that, language sometimes is pain and discomfort, but often that is because we are not practiced at tuning into the subtleties, or we don't know what to do with the information, or we don't deem it important enough to treat, to pay attention to, because it's not loud enough to disrupt our lives. And when we really orient to our bodies as an oracle, the process that we come to is that the communication is guidance. It's benevolent guidance, not just to heal the body, but to heal our lives. So rather than fixing the panic attack with Xanax or breath, just by like cutting off the sensation, we're able to really become curious about why that panic attack is happening. And we can utilize the sensation of the body to create a discovery process. And what we do to heal it is healing our entire lives. It's bringing us into alignment. It's bringing us into better relationships and better jobs and better work-life balance and all the things that we need to have a most actualized and highest potential life and experience. And the body and its sensations and communications are always guiding us to that, what we need to let go of, what we need to bring more in. And so I would really like to activate that idea with all of you, that the body is a benevolent communicator, a wise guide, an intermediary between the 3D world and our divine higher level consciousness. And so when we can really orient to the body that way, it becomes an amazing ally and not something that is sort of in the way of what we are wanting to do, but guiding us to our highest potential. So, and I just want to drop this in. I know that we're recording and you may want to remain anonymous, but you can speak even with your face, the video off. You can drop anything in the chat, anything that you're inspired to share or ask anytime along the way, please do. And Raquel, if you notice that you're getting some messages, and you can let me know, okay? So I would love you guys to get back into your body the way we began, so that we can feel what it feels like to believe this. So every thought and belief has biomarkers. Every thought and belief has a posture, a breath, a muscle tension pattern, electrical signals. And we're tuning into what the belief is, of really knowing that our body is an oracle, that our body is intelligent, that our body is a guide for us. And when we hold that in our being, in our container, what it feels like. And then we're going to do an activation breath together. Beginning with in-mouth medium. In more. In more. Out mouth medium. In mouth, out nose, slow. In nose, out nose, medium. In nose, out mouth, fast. In mouth, out mouth, in mouth, medium. In more. In more. Out nose, in mouth, slow. Out nose, in nose, medium. Out mouth, in nose, fast. Out mouth, in mouth, medium. In more. In more. And hold. Hold the breath in your body as long as you are able comfortably, while holding the activation, the sensation of that belief, that focus. Feel your heart beating. Feel your cells aligning with that belief and activation. And exhale completely whenever your body is ready, and immerse in the gamma state. Feel as though you have just walked through a threshold, and now you are operating from that belief system fully, without question. Okay, everybody come back to me as you're ready. Do some wiggles. Just be very comfortable in the body. Let the energy move through. If there's any stagnation or maybe a heightened level of energy that needs to dissipate. So, building on this idea that our body is an oracle and that we that we're best served by understanding the body's language more and more. I would like to open the door on the idea of non-goal oriented movement and other self-care practices that are, bless you, not goal oriented. So this is how I believe that we start to tune into our body's subtle frequency. And to be able to read the frequency of our body is something that is very palpable. You can feel it, you can measure it. Now we have things to measure frequency, and now all the esoterics are becoming more concrete for our 3D minds to absorb. But also it doesn't really matter whether you can measure it, because you can feel it, and that is the most important measurement. And I think that we devalue that measurement. We are taught that we need some kind of proof for what we feel. And I want to just sort of push that to the side and pull in this powerful idea that our sensations are the primary source of cognition. This is how we know. And this has been known by human beings for thousands of years. And we just happen to be at a time where that is sort of numbed, and, for a number of reasons that we don't need to get into, because I think we all understand that. But it is a bit swimming upstream in this culture of ours, that we would value and heed our sensations, and our subtle guidance over proof, science, whatever's flying at us. And that requires that idea that we're going to be governed from within, from these subtle senses. It requires a lot of internal sense of empowerment and sovereignty, and we won't have that unless we really feel like we know what's happening in here. And when we do, it's very easy to become mama bear for yourself and your family, because you have that feeling. Everyone has had it probably for their dog or their baby, or maybe hopefully for themselves, where there is just a strong yes or no. And it doesn't really matter what anyone else thinks. And we want to be tuning into that feeling all the time as our compass. And how we do that is having a regular practice of tending. Most of our movement is performative, is goal-oriented. We're trying to lose weight, get stronger, stretch deeper, look beautiful on a stage, whatever it is. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but it's a different orientation, and it does not help us tune in to our subtleties. So I love to guide women in self-care that is about turning off Wi-Fi, putting on some music on airplane mode, getting on the mat with your massage balls and your massage oils and your foam roller, and literally just laying there, just breathing, just rolling around on the floor, just finding something that feels good. Dancing, of course, singing, of course, self-massage is amazing. We also do not give enough credit to these healing hands of ours. We can discover our bodies and heal our bodies through our breath, through our touch, through our own movement, through our own sound. And these are foundational, the way that we have come to understand that high quality, clean water and, good, clean nutrition are essential for our health. These are also aspects of health that we need to nourish, that we need to have in our repertoire of self-care. And, I think that like the Instagram version of self-care is more like manicures and bubble baths, and I'm telling you, go for a barefoot walk, connect with nature, all the things that, again, not new ideas, and I'm not pretending that they are, but I'm bringing it into this space now with this gamma state in the brain and this coherence in the group of women who are here to care for their bodies and know their bodies on a higher level, and really pull that up to the highest level of importance, that this is how we become the beings that make clear and unapologetic decisions, know our body, can care for our bodies and our families. And this is also awakening feminine energy, because this is intrinsic living. This is feeling over doing. This is valuing our energetic state first in order to care for the other energetic states. And these are all things that we did not learn for the most part when we were younger. We learned to tend to others before ourselves. We learned to do and accomplish versus, just be and hold our own sensations as important. And so this recalibration takes time and intention. And these workshops are really helpful for setting us up for a mindset and a self-care practice that is going to continuously nourish. And it's just like brushing your teeth. Like, you don't do it once and your teeth are clean for the rest of your life, You have to continuously nourish this feminine energy, this noticing energy. We have to connect with our breath, our womb space, our womanhood, because we've been severed from it. And as far as the aspect of womanhood, I think it's particularly important because we have been made to believe that it's a liability. made to believe that it is, our female bodies are unknowable. They're sort of ticking time bombs. They're, we can't handle birth or our periods or menopause or anything going on with our body without the outside help, outside hormones and interventions of all kinds. And it leaves us feeling very disconnected from this space where we don't even use red liquid in period commercials for tampons because we can't associate blood with our period and our bodies in our culture. And so all of these little things chip away at our connection to womanhood, and our connection to womanhood is our connection to this feminine energy. So I would like to just sink into that for a moment, because we all have a story. We have that time that we bled through our pants in public and we're just mortified, or we had an uncomfortable pelvic exam or sexual experience, but we didn't use our voice, or something like that. That is like the thread. When I'm tugging on this thread of womanhood, what comes up, what memory, what belief, what cultural story comes up that you feel represents a barrier between you and connecting to this divine feminine energy, to this womanhood that is a superpower. And we've been separated from it because it's a superpower. So let's take that power back, and we're going to use that memory, that bit of discomfort or sadness or whatever, as fuel. We're going to breathe into that memory and help transmute it into gamma and into power for connecting to and caring for ourselves. So I would like you to first feel the feeling. Feel compassion for that person that you were in that moment, or for the feeling that you're still carrying in your body. And just identify what you want to transmute. And it doesn't have to be everything and huge and global, but just picking that thing that comes first, because it is connected to all the other things. And it's like a domino effect when we transmute this one memory, this one thought. We're going to do a process breath. In mouth, out mouth, medium. In mouth, out nose, slow. In nose, out nose, medium. In nose, out mouth, fast. In mouth, out mouth, in mouth, medium. Out nose, in mouth, slow. Out nose, in nose, medium. Out nose, in mouth, fast. Out mouth, in mouth, medium. Out mouth, medium. And rest. And I want you to just notice the body and that flood of different chemicals rushing through the body. Perhaps notice a sense of ease. And as I mentioned, we're using that breath to take that ball of energy that we want to transmute into something that we want to truly create and focus on. So now I want you to tune into your body and create a mantra or two. Say a few words to yourself, like being a woman is a gift. I know and trust my body. I love my body. I am exactly who I'm supposed to be and where I'm supposed to be in this moment. Everything is perfect as it is. I trust my life and process. I feel the gift that womanhood is. I want you to choose some words that mean something to you in this moment and say them out loud. I love myself exactly as I am. I love being a woman. And we are going to amplify that sentiment with another breath, beginning with in-mouth medium. In more. In more. Out mouth, in mouth, medium. Out mouth, in nose, slow. Out nose, in nose, medium. Out nose, in mouth, fast. Out mouth, in mouth, medium. In more. In more. In more. Out nose, in mouth, slow. Out nose, in nose, medium. Out mouth, in nose, fast. Out mouth, in mouth, medium. In more. In more. In more. And hold as long as it's comfortable. Let it feel good. Don't push that hold, but possibly ride that first wave of discomfort or elation from that breath hold and settle into that very spacious sensation and focus on the frequency of your mantra. Holding as long as you like, exhaling whenever you need. Allowing the body to fully relax. And really tune into this frequency. Remember that it is very knowable, that the body is knowable, the frequency is knowable, the vibration is at your fingertips anytime you decide to check in. And right now we are feeling just this flood of feel-good hormones and chemicals rushing through the body, helping to create those new neural pathways for the highest thought and belief that we want those programs to be running our unconscious behaviors. And then coming back into the space when you're ready. Okay, so we are going to get into a little bit of different breaths and body awareness. This particular workshop is not movement oriented, but it is body oriented. So I have plenty of movement exploration options. If you ever desire to tap in with me around movement, around hormone health, about fertility, womb health, all of that stuff. So, but this is about really just orienting to our body. Hello, body, like there you are, like what, especially the pelvic floor. So what the next few breaths and body awareness practices are about is really orienting to our root and sacral chakra and to that physical space in the body, the pelvic floor, the pelvic bowl, the womb space, whether you have a uterus or not. This is still a sacred space in the female body. I have been asked that just so you know why I'm bringing it up, and that I've worked with a number of women with hysterectomies, and it's still an energetic space of huge significance, and we carried that space, that actual organ in our body for a significant portion of our growth, and it is always, that imprint is always with us. So before we kind of dive into that, I'm just going to open the floor to any of you that would like to share a reflection, a question, or a thought that you felt was significant that you feel might be nourishing to the group. I always have to leave a little extra time because no one raises their hand at first, but then usually it starts to get juicy. So don't be afraid. I would love to hear about the experience so far of just maybe what it feels like to reorient to the body in this way. No need to raise your hand, unmute and speak.
Yeah, Justine, go for it. She raised her
Okay,
hand.
sure. I'm so used to Zoom calls with the electronic hand.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what came to me is, I got some clarity while I was just lying here doing that breathing around self-care and around what option I should choose for a trip that I'm about to make tomorrow. Going to the airport and then going to Guatemala, etc. And, all of a sudden it just becomes clear to me that even though I'm counting my pennies, that I need to take the more gentler shuttle way and not like drag 2 suitcases on multiple transportation without getting enough sleep at the airport, etc. Because there's a way of doing it really cheap and really hard. And then there's the way of spending a little bit more money and, feeling afraid that you really can't afford that money. I know you're familiar with that. But, my body is like, you just need to trust that you need to take care of yourself and do it the gentler way. So I got clarity. And believe me, I had been like really steering away from that choice for days to the hard hauling ass way. So anyway, thanks for that.
It's so interesting because it marries this with Raquel's last offering. And Raquel, I don't know if you were here for it, but offered a becoming money activation. And yeah, and the thing is about money and our fear around money is that it has a lot to do with the imbalance of masculine and feminine energy and our ability to receive. Because we are taught in this world that if you want to get it, if you want to receive it, you have to go out and get it, right? That you have to do in order to receive. And I'm not saying that there's not doing and that feminine isn't even about doing, but we have trouble believing that we can receive You know, it's all connected to our worthiness and our ability to be gentle, like you were talking about, and this convergence of money and having faith, and really just opening channels for receiving money, both energetically and also through action, right? Like, how can people give you money if you haven't created a way for them, and creating a way for them through inspired action, through connecting to our creativity, our intuition, and our feminine energy, and not overriding the body, but actually working in alignment with the body, which is something I really teach as far as like understanding the hormonal process of women, because we're on a solar rhythm in this world, right? So we're, as women, taught to be on that solar rhythm, and you know, the idea of tuning into our ebbs and flows as a woman is so woo-woo and disconnected from the mainstream that it's really hard to understand. We don't have a model. We don't have somebody to look to and say, oh, they did it really well. And I'm going to follow that model. Everywhere around us, people who are achieving, for the most part, you know, our main, you know, imprints on our mind are this hyper masculine approach to receiving and to creating abundance. And then it makes it really hard to care for ourselves. And so they're so inextricably linked, right? So I really appreciate you mentioning that, because yeah, if we make the choice to do something that is more gentle, that is in alignment with what our body is telling us to do, we fear that we're going to set ourselves up for failure in some other department in life. We're going to spend more than we can, or, you know, whatever. And it always turns out the opposite way. Like, we have a lot of evidence of that when we're tuning into our bodies and we're making that momentarily difficult choice, that then the universe feeds us back that energy. And getting in a full trusting relationship with that, I think, does have a tremendous amount to do of just keep returning to the body, keep returning to that subtle guidance, trusting that subtle guidance, and watching how things play out. I made a decision to not promote myself a lot on Instagram anymore, because it just felt like it was an energy suck. And everyone was like, oh, it's business suicide, you need to come back. And honestly, like, better things have happened in my business since I did that than did for the year before. Not that it wasn't going great at that time. I was feeling really aligned. But then, you know, everything in business tells you absolutely not to do that, that you need to be like a major content creator on all these platforms and just be like, you know, and it started to feel depleting and inauthentic to me. And it was amazing and inspirational and authentic for me for a while, which is why I was in it. But I made a scary choice. I decided to just listen and put my energy elsewhere and put more energy into my home life, which needed it at the moment. And my business expanded, and I actually got more opportunities, and that's still happening. And I know that that is cliche, like you've probably heard that story from other people, but I also feel like we all have that story that we just need to remember and use that, like, you know, again, gamify that, like, remember, you know, take the belief, process it, take that memory of doing the thing that your body said yes to, and amplify it, and continue to trust it, and continue to tune into these subtle communications from the body. Okay, so thank you, Justine. Is that Justy or Justine?
Justy.
Justy.
Can I share one more thing that you just like stimulated for me? You know, I had been judging myself this whole month for buying crystals from a woman here locally, because I was so inspired to do more crystal healing as a result of my retreat. And then, you know, money started to get really short. And I was like, oh my goodness, I shouldn't have bought those crystals. But I just realized that when I get to San Marcos, I'm just going to start offering crystal healing, because I love doing it. You know, I'm a Reiki master and etc. And, you know, I can make those crystals pay for themselves right away. I'm already on the WhatsApp group, a couple of the groups there. And it's just like what you said, I burnt out of Instagram to a certain point after the coach, you know, was having me post multiple times a day and on multiple platforms, just exactly what you said. I had the same experience, and I've just allowed it. I've allowed that. Like, okay, you're regrouping, you're gonna see. But it came together. Just offer crystal healing. Like, it's so special. Like, it's not, people are gonna want to do it. So thank you for that.
I think that what you're saying, what's crystallizing for me, pun intended, is that how we're offering to this world is our frequency. Like, we think it's our service, it's our doing, it's our product, it's the meals we cook, it's the whatever. The content you create, whether it's the meal or the Instagram post or even the service, is only as good as the frequency with which it is given, right?
Right.
And so that true returning to cultivating that frequency and not glorifying the output, right? Not glorifying the content, or like, look what I do for my child. I run him here, I run him there, this practice and that meal and this. But are you doing it while feeling depleted? Are you, like, I just built this house with my husband. I mean, I didn't build it with my hands, but it was a very arduous process having it built. We are living in a small town in Mexico. It's just a process. It's difficult. And there were so many times where I was like me and the house like this. And I very much had to constantly cultivate like a relationship with this inanimate object. I had to, in order for it to, it's like, it's not worth it otherwise. Like, I don't even want it, right? I constantly had to bring myself to a place of trust, patience, gratitude, faith that, like, that these are learning experiences, that this friction is building me, in important ways, and also just testing my container generally, whether it's a lack of money or a troublesome kid or a really big project or, business thing. I feel like, it's an opportunity to feel like, how much can we contain while still maintaining this connection to self? And then at what level does that just pull us out of ourselves and we become like this robot that we're sort of trained to be? And so first we cultivate this skill of being with ourselves. And then we cultivate the skill of being with ourselves with a lot of stimulus and challenges and belief systems that, it's like we have the belief system that we've cultivated consciously, and then we have that other one that's been deeper, ingrained and present for so long, and money beliefs are such a perfect example of that. That is still existing, and they're going to have to coexist until we can slowly, consciously transmute it. I think that being embodied is the foundation for being able to have that container of peace and gratitude and being centered, like knowing if you're reacting or if you are making aligned choices. If it's fear that's driving this belief that like, you shouldn't have bought the crystals, or if it was actually like a sense of clarity and responsibility that, okay, I need to realign how I allocate my energy, my resources, my funds. Those are conversations that we're always having, and there's no exact, like, there's never going to be oh, it's always fine to buy the crystals, or it's never fine to buy the crystals. It has to come from like, okay, I was driven to do that for a good reason, and I also can see their value exponentially in my future, and so I can really, like, hone in on that feeling and how that feels in my body, that belief, and allow it to readjust how we feel. So I want to tap into that for a moment. It's something that I think people don't really understand, is this biomarkers of thought. When we think something, our whole body responds. Our eyes move differently. Our facial expression changes. All the domes in our body, so our throat, our diaphragm, our pelvic floor, and even our feet, they respond. Our hip flexors respond. Our fascia and the electrical system responds. Our breath, our heart rate. So the idea that thoughts become things, or thoughts manifest in the body, is incredibly literal. It is actually making us all the time. And so when we become more conscious of our thoughts, of course, then we can become more conscious stewards of our body, but we can also notice our body as a reflection of what unconscious programs are running. So I help people heal their core and pelvic floor. That's like a very big wheelhouse of mine. It's kind of where everything else sprouted from. And breaths and the exercises and all of that don't necessarily move the needle for people because they don't realize that they're sitting, standing, breathing in a way that will exacerbate or perpetuate the issue of the pelvic floor, which is at the bottom of the breath chain. So how we stand and how we breathe will physiologically affect the core and pelvic floor very literally. And so they're doing the stretches and they're doing the breaths, and then they're going out and they're running these unconscious programs that shift their hips and shift their ribs and tighten their diaphragm and tighten their abdominals and put downward pressure on the pelvic floor, and they don't even know it. And so it's very hard to heal. And tuning into how the thoughts are manifesting into the body is the work. We have to notice that little by little, day by day. And how we notice that is to create a baseline. And so the next thing that I'm going to take you guys through is this baseline breath. And I call it intelligent design breath because it is simply how we are intelligently designed to breathe, unobstructed, no load. This is a resting breath. This is not how we breathe when we're planking or squatting. Oh, sorry. Like, you, oh yeah. New hobby, if you could mute. I'm hearing my own. Thank you so much. Or Raquel can. Okay, thank you. So just knowing how the air is meant to travel from the nose to the pelvic floor, understanding our pressure system is a huge empowering aspect to being able to heal pelvic floor and core issues, which heals our relationship to pleasure, and heals our, just self-confidence, because it's related to that common problem that women suffer from, like painful sex, peeing when you sneeze, feeling heaviness, that's the beginnings of prolapse. But also it is our baseline frequency check. It is noticing, oh, I'm holding tension, my bones and my tissue have adjusted to that tension. And when I notice that, and I click into what I know is the intelligent design of my breath, there's a full body alignment of the tissue, the bones, the nervous system. And so this is simple, very simple, but I've taught so many people this, even people in the field of breath and exercise, and I have mostly heard, wow, I was never taught this, and things like that. So I'm offering it as a very simple practice, but it still can be incredibly, the most impactful things are the simple things, So tuning into the body, I would like you to get to a place where your head, shoulders, rib cage, and pelvis are in alignment, stacked. Sometimes it's good to sit up against a wall so you don't feel any effort in the back muscles. And I'll just tell you that when we're sitting, you can also be lying down. But when we're sitting, cross-legged or I'm like on my knees, a lot of the time I see this where the ribs shift forward and up, especially in a yoga class or a breath class, and it's sort of an eagerness or a fawning or I'm a good student or I'm really here to learn and be present. But there's a little bit of an outward focus that brings the body forward, and it will actually lock down those back muscles and your ability to breathe into the back and down regulate the core. So I want you to bring your rib cage over the pelvis. Feel the body weight is in the middle of the sits bones. You may even want to do a little rocking in the pelvis. And when you settle, it may feel a little bit slouchy. And I won't go into why that is at this moment, but what I want you to notice is that when you breathe, that there is room for the tissue to easily expand in your back, which can't happen if you're here. And obviously, if you're tighter in the body and you're sitting cross-legged and you're in a hunched position, prop your booty up so that you can easily sit stacked. So I'm just giving you a moment to be in a heightened level of awareness of your stack, because this is how we're designed to be. And yes, we're designed to move and breathe in all kinds of positions, but we want our default to be in this stack. So when we're standing for a long time, when we're, chopping vegetables or doing dishes, you don't want to constantly be holding a pattern of your hips squeezing forward to the countertop or the shoulders up by the ears. So we want to know what this stack feels like. And Raquel, can you hear me okay? Okay, thank you. So then you're in your stack, and I just want you to feel the head, the shoulders, the rib cage, the pelvis over one another, and the tissue 360 to feel yielding, soft, easy, receptive to movement. And we're not actually going to move, but just feel how the breath moves us from the insides. Closing the eyes so that we can use the visual, the sensory power of the eyes to envision, to see inside our bodies. So I want you to picture what I'm describing or what you're feeling. You're feeling the air starting moving in through the nose, cool. The little nose hairs filtering the air for you, filling into the sinuses and into the back of the throat. You may notice the quality of the air, the scent in the air. And then feeling that air move into the back of the throat and into the lungs. So I want you to just notice that pathway from the nose, into the throat, into the lungs. And as the lungs expand, the rib cage expands 360. So that's your inhale. Inhale, rib cage expands in all directions. Exhale, rib cage relaxes, and the air is effortlessly leaving the body. So just watching from the inside out, those ribs expand like an accordion. And maybe you notice the spine between the rib cage expanding out towards the skin. Just to do a little check, do you feel that shape change in your back? And maybe you notice the width of your rib cage widening through the inhale. And then naturally, they just come closer to the organs on the exhale. And then I would like you to put your hand on your diaphragm, which is the space right where your ribs split, your solar plexus. And I'm going to speak about the body as though somebody here might not know, even though most of you do. So here's where our diaphragm is. And as you inhale, I just want you to feel what's happening under your hand. Most likely the ribs are widening. You're just feeling the space expand under your hand, and then exhale. There's a softening and a narrowing of the rib cage. And I want you to intentionally open the back of your throat. Your mouth is closed. You're just creating a space in the back of your throat, like there's a golf ball in there, but obviously plenty of room to actually breathe. That's just the space. And I want you to notice that as you open the back of the throat, that there is a shift under your hand by your diaphragm. Now, this is just a little shortcut for me. As soon as I open my throat and I feel my diaphragm respond, I feel a full body recalibration, an exhale feeling, the sense of like relief, because that tension in the throat is no longer restricting my diaphragm. And as my diaphragm expands more fully and dynamically, I'm feeling the change of the whole quality of the breath. And this might illuminate the kind of tension you're holding in the throat or the diaphragm unconsciously all the time. This is a practice I do many times a day, and I still notice this relationship every time I open my throat. And I feel that breath come in unobstructed and my diaphragm fully bloom. That is a different feeling than my everyday breath. This is something we can return to. So now the diaphragm, you may open your eyes if you like, or you can continue to picture it. On the inhale, the diaphragm draws down. I picture like a syringe plunger pulling down to draw the air in. And then it relaxes back up into a dome or umbrella shape as you exhale. On the inhale, it stretches down and flattens. On the exhale, it relaxes up. And so I just want you to picture that function of the diaphragm, because it is your number one breathing muscle. There are other breathing muscles that are involved in that breath, but the diaphragm is the thing that is pulling the air into the lungs. And as that happens, the lungs expand and the air pressure expands in the body. And I would like you to just hold the next breath. Inhale, hold, and you're sealing your mouth and nose so the air doesn't come out of the lungs. But the whole trunk from the pelvic floor all the way to the nose is one pressure system. So as you expand the air pressure in the lungs, it displaces everything else in the trunk. So you can put your hand on your belly now, exhale, feel the belly softly glide in towards the organs. On the inhale, as the pressure expands, the belly moves away from your center. And this is not because the air is going into your belly, but because the air in the lungs is displacing the organs and making the belly and the flesh of the side body and the lower back expand. So now you can let your hand rest, you can put your hands on your lower back, but I'd like you to notice that as you inhale, the tissue in the lower back stretches. And it's subtle, but if you pay attention, and you're not holding tension in the throat, the diaphragm, or the belly, as you breathe, the whole pressure system expands, even to the pelvis. So you can put your hands on the iliac crest, which is those hip bones. And on the inhale, notice the hip bones widening. And exhale, the hip bones naturally narrow a bit. And it's soft, subtle, but it's perceptible. And now we are bringing attention to the pelvic floor, which is, and you can put your hands on the pelvic floor. So it's basically just touching your lady parts. They're the muscles between the pubic bone and tailbone and sits bones. And on the inhale, they do exactly what the diaphragm does. Inhale, draws down, a little pressure. On the exhale, relax up, a gentle, effortless hug. On the inhale, draws down, a little pressure in the yoni. On the exhale, relaxes up. So what I want you to notice is that the diaphragm and the pelvic floor mirror each other on every breath if we're not restricting it. Inhale, draws down, more pressure in the pressure system. Exhale, relaxing up, natural internal hug. So be with this breath as long as you need to feel like you're making contact and understanding those sensations in the body. And return back to the space with your eyes when you feel complete. So this is what I use as a baseline. As a baseline for breath, so knowing that the breath is unobstructed, another really common way that our beliefs manifest physically in the body is that we believe we need a flat stomach. So we're holding our abdominals in without knowing all day long. And then you might notice, just holding my abdominals in, I'm brushing my teeth. I'm in a baggy t-shirt at home. I'm still holding my abdominals in. Who am I performing for? It's so ingrained. You may not realize it. You may not realize that you're shifting the weight into the balls of your feet because you're always looking to be on and forward and in service. But you will notice that the body starts to feel tension in the quads and the knees and the hips. You will notice that the breath feels out of alignment. So when we have this baseline for how our stack is supposed to feel, the ease in our tissue, the breath moving unobstructed, the entire trunk of the body, then when you notice this discomfort, it's easy to return back to this breath, even if it's in a moment where you're not in a full meditation, because you have established this in meditation. You've taken 10 minutes to be in a quiet, safe space to really feel your baseline intelligent breath. That way you can return to it anytime you notice that you're away from it. And this is also the foundation for being able to relax the pelvic floor and fully lift and activate the pelvic floor, which is incredibly responsive to our nervous system. So the pelvic floor is at the root. It's connected to our tailbone where our root chakra is, and it is very responsive to our sense of safety, to our sense of like security, our connection to the earth, our connection to our body. These are all root chakra aspects of the root chakra. And so when these aspects are interrupted, when people are wearing shoes all the time, that are restricting the function of their feet, when they're wearing sunglasses and absorbing a lot of blue light and doing other things to disrupt their the light signals coming into their body, which affects the hormones, which affects the pelvic floor. You wouldn't think about these connections, but it's been a while, and I'm starting to really see how it is so very connected. And it could seem complicated, but it is quite simple when you think about the root chakra. The root chakra, to be balanced, needs you to have a good connection to your body, feeling the interoception, like what's going on in there, and the proprioception, which is like how you move your body in space, and if you feel in good communion with that. So your body connection, your earth connection, your connection to safety, and then breath and pelvic floor. And the reason why those are part of that root chakra is because the pelvic floor is the anatomical root. And because breath is our connection to both safety and the pelvic floor. So it is this intermediary between the mind and that tissue. So if we nurture those aspects, then the pelvic floor tends to function very well with even without checking the boxes of doing all your exercises and, all of the stretches and stuff like that. Those are amazing and I love them and they're wonderful for helping people to heal, but it will function well and naturally if you're taking care of the root chakra. And that is a very physical thing because of how I've illustrated that, the sense of safety will shift the tissue and affect the breath, which is affecting the pelvic floor. And why do we want to care for the pelvic floor? I mean, has anyone had a meeting with their pelvic floor that made them realize like, oh, I should pay attention to you. I should know what this is. Pregnancy, peeing when you sneeze. Like, are you guys like, oh yeah, now at some point in my life, I started to realize that the pelvic floor is important, even though I didn't know what it was when I was 20 or something. Yeah. Okay. So pelvic floor health also has a tremendous amount to do with our hip and back health. Our deep core system. So we can even have pelvic floor dysfunction and not realize it. But I would say that being in the fitness world, by the time women are in their mid to late 20s, I start hearing like that they can't jump rope unless they go empty their bladder first. Which is just like counted as common and normal, but it actually is an indication that there's something to be upgraded. And most of the time that is because there is a rigidity in the pelvic floor. And most women think that it is because of a weakness. And that distinction is important because these muscles are dynamic. So, they're meant to relax fully on every inhale unless you're doing a loaded exercise. And then to activate, instead of this clamping Kegel kind of exercise that we're guided to, we really want to feel a more alive, lifted activation that feels more turned on. So it is much more of a yes feeling in the body versus just this clamping. So we're going to experience that a little bit together. I want you to do a Kegel and hold the Kegel. And I want you to notice what it feels like in your yoni. and also what it feels like in these muscles between the hip bones and pubic bone, the lower transverse abdominis. Just notice. There's a relationship there that I want you to just feel. And then relax. And then, okay, so if this is the vaginal canal, Kegels for most people feel like this, like a hug or a clamp. So instead of that, we're going to do more like this. We're going to feel this lift. So, and I'm going to guide you through a breath that's going to help you more and more differentiate between those sensations. But for right now, we're going to do our best at relaxing the yoni. So feeling that pressure, that bloom open. And then when you lift, think more like a flower is reverse blooming. It's wrapping up into the bud and lifting into the center of your body. And hold, and notice the vaginal opening is less tight, less clamped. And the muscles between the hip bones and pubic bone, they're more activated. So it's not that the Kegel doesn't activate it, but there is more of a synergy when we activate the pelvic floor this way to get the lower transverse to also act. So these muscles here, as we're lifting the pelvic floor, are responding in kind. And then I want you to relax and bloom open and release. And notice that release is as important as the lift and activation. And we are also not visiting that bloom open and softness nearly enough. So it is not that you need to clamp to strengthen the pelvic floor, but that we really need to stretch it open and feel the full release and bloom of those muscles, as well as when we do lift, to find a more delicious sensation, a more holistic sensation in that pelvic floor activation. So I'm hoping that there was a little bit of a connection made in that, and then we're going to do flower breathing, which is just what I talked about, but with all that sensory energy going inward. So we're basing the flower breath first on the intelligent design breath. So you can just breathe and notice your body in that stack, easy in the back of the throat, in the diaphragm, and the tissue of the belly. Back muscles also, your bones are in a position that the tissue in the back can also expand in breath. Everything feels easy. And I want you to just now bring the attention down to the pelvic floor. And on the inhale, you're noticing that blooming open. The space between the pubic bone, sits bones, and tailbone are actually expanding. And on the exhale, then that flower wraps back up into the bloom, the bud, and lifts into the center of the body, the warm earth that is your womb space. And on the inhale, that flower travels back down the vaginal canal and blooms open at the peak of the inhale. When you feel that pressure, feel that space. On the exhale, it wraps back up and lifts back into that warm, fertile space of the womb. Inhale, blooming open. Exhale, hug and lift. Holding that hug and lift for a moment just to really feel the sensation of it and all that comes with it. It might put a smile on your face. It might make you a little bit like Randy. It might make you feel more powerful in the belly muscles. Inhaling, blooming open. I want you to notice all that comes with that. The ease, the exhale, the exhale of the mind. It's inhaling, but it's releasing tension. And the exhale, lifting, activating. Find the power in that. Feel that this is where we would be if we were carrying something heavy, because we feel connected and supported, organs and spine hugged by all of the layers of muscles in our belly. Inhaling, opening, blooming, soft. And exhale, drawing up. And just being with that sparkle, illumination in the womb space. So I want you to continue to do this on your own pace, at your own pace. Continue to keep your eyes closed. And I just want you to do this and feel this in your body. And I'm offering this as a practice for you to connect with your womanhood, your connection to pleasure, getting that sparkle. The womb space tends to be sort of a shadowy space that we don't feel like we know it. We don't orient to it very much. Even if we know when we're going to bleed or ovulate, it's sort of intellectual and calendar based. And this breath is about bringing awareness to this womb space and to this pleasure center that is the pelvic floor in a very embodied, intimate way. So when we do this breath, we are reconditioning our core and our breath patterns, but we are also really connecting with our womanhood, our female body, what makes us particularly different. And yes, this is a similar process for men, but I would describe it differently. And I'm not speaking to men today. So this is for you women. And as you maybe, hopefully, cultivate just a little bit of pleasure in this breath, I want you to feel that pleasure and like just take a moment to notice if you're comfortable with it, if you are really inviting it, if you feel that you can't access it or things feel numb or disconnected, if you feel that there is some sort of discomfort with the idea of experiencing this pleasure in a group setting with other women, just as an observer, noticing the relationship to the subtle pleasure that you're cultivating, just dipping your toe into how you orient to that relationship with pleasure and your female body. When you feel ready, I would really love to hear from somebody about how that felt in the body, if you were able to feel what I was describing, and if you had any insights into pleasure and your relationship with your female body.
I'll share that this feels super nourishing and resourcing and so gentle and such a beautiful feminine essence. I'm enjoying this very much. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Raquel. Yes, I call this flower breath, and I actually can kind of feel the energy of flowers in my body when I do this breath. It has a very soft nature, and communing with the body in this way is it's a prayer. It's really allowing us to feel the importance of subtlety and our pleasure and exploring our bodies. And it's a great gateway into exploring the body in numerous other ways. Can I answer any questions about core pelvic floor health, how breath relates to that, or simple self-care practices around caring for the core and pelvic floor?
I would like to share if I might.
Would love to hear from you, Raven.
It's kind of an interesting exercise. I like the image of the flower. It reminds me of a pelvic floor exercise I was taught by, I think, a Pilates person, where you connect to the muscles in the front, in the back, and both sides of your pelvic floor, and you pull them up like you're pulling up a basket. But I like the flower image, of the curling upwards and then opening downwards. And that the release of the tension is as important as creating the tension through pulling it up. and that those muscles, the transverse muscles, are actually supposed to engage. I've been trying to not do those when I do my pelvics because nobody ever told me they were supposed to engage. So I thought, well, I'm doing it too hard if I'm pulling in on these muscles as well.
No, okay, so you brought in a couple of things that are so important. First of all, so the transverse abdominis is a big muscle. It goes from the rib cage down to the pelvis, down to the pubic bone, wraps from the back to the front body like a corset. So you might even hear Pilates teachers call it your corset muscle and cue the corset muscle. But because of a number of factors, I'll name a couple really common ones, like we sit a lot, we hold tension in our throat and diaphragm, we hold abdominal tension because we want to look skinnier or we're self-conscious in some way. The upper and middle part of the transverse abdominis is more responsive when we cue it, like when we think we want to wrap the corset, or some people cue those muscles by saying navel to spine. I don't do that because it will get you to upregulate the middle and upper portion of the abdominals, and the lower abdominals, the lower transverse abdominis, stays relatively asleep or downregulated. If you draw your navel to spine, you might notice that you get more response up top, less response down low. But if you lift the pelvic floor, then you will get the lower transverse to turn on and still leave room for the diaphragm to expand and breathe. And we really need that. So when we're loading, like, so we're in a plank or we have a barbell on our back and we're in a squat, we want to have that support of the lifted pelvic floor and the lower transverse abdominis to be activated while still having room to expand in the diaphragm and be able to breathe. Because breathing is still stimulating our core muscles. The breathing muscles and the core muscles are essentially the same muscles. And so yes, activating the pelvic floor is helping you to activate the lower transverse, which is giving you a lot of hip stability and supporting the organs up and in your body instead of this downward pressure that can sometimes happen when we begin to load the body and we don't have integrity in the muscles. And also that basket thing that you were saying, the points. So what we did was just the beginning. The flower breath can be utilized. So I studied a lot of Tao breathing practices, and the flower breath is like a way of opening up that space. But the pelvic floor is a woven network of numerous muscles. And if you sit right now and try to lift the rectum, it's going to feel different than if you try to lift the pelvic floor through the vaginal opening. If you relax and then feel that wrap and hug around the clitoris, you're going to notice the front of the pelvic floor activating more. And what's really interesting is that in Tao practices, they isolate it to the point where you can activate the front, back, side, or side of the rectum, of the vaginal opening. Like it is very intricate, and they are very intricate muscles, and we can gain more and more control and sensation around them. But a lot of people are just working with that basic open and lift and feeling like sometimes disconnected, sometimes numb, sometimes they don't have that control. So it's the beginning point to work with. And then if you feel really in command of it and you feel really connected to that release, which, as Raven reminded us, is as or even more important than the lift and activation, then you can start activating around different points of the pelvic floor and choosing, those bony landmarks that I gave you. Actually, we'll do this to end. So we're going to travel with our hands around the pelvic bowl. So I want you to start with your fingers at the top of your butt crack, tailbone area, and just feel it. And this is orienting you to your body. So knowing that at the tip of the tailbone is also the connection point for back of the pelvic floor muscles. And then you walk your hands up and you're at that big triangle bone, and that's your sacrum. And then you walk your hands to the side of the sacrum, and there's two little divots, and that's your SI joint. That's where your pelvis meets your sacrum. This is where a lot of funky stuff can happen, and we get pain in the hips that stems from this SI joint area. So getting to know how this feels and the little wiggles on either side is a really good self-care tool, just to become in touch with this joint in our body. And then we walk the hands across the iliac crest, that's those big bones up top, all the way around to the ASIS bones. This is the anterior superior iliac spine. And this is what we use to line our feet up hips width. So when you hear hips width, we're not guiding from the outside of the body because we all vary so much in that department, but the bones will guide us to where we align our knees, our heels and toes for hips distant. And then walking inward, we have the pubic bone. And so now when we, and then from the pubic bone, we have the ischium, the sits bones. So that's the bones that you sit on. They're at the bottom of that pelvic bone from the iliac crest to the ischium. And those are the bones that you feel that you are stacking over when you sit. And to be 99% of that is probably already in your brain, maybe 100. But really being oriented to the different bones and bony points, now we know we got the pubic bone, the tailbone, the sits bones, we've touched them, we felt them, and we know that that trampoline of muscles that connect those bones at the bottom of the trunk, our root, is where we're working. And as far as that flower breath, then we can start to feel like I can hug the muscles around just one sits bone and relax. And then I can do it the same on the other side. And then I can feel that activation around the clitoris. And that also brings a little bit more attention possibly to the bladder, because that's also an activation closer to the urethra. And you can utilize that. You can say like, I feel that I have a bit of incontinence, stress incontinence. I sneeze 6 times and I'll pee on that last sneeze. So I want to be with my flower breath and feel my body fully yielding and relaxing the tissue. And then I want to maybe activate the front of the pelvic floor a little bit, because maybe the front of the pelvic floor needs to be more activated. Maybe the back of the pelvic floor is actually too tight, because we tend to actually clench our booties when we're not paying attention. You might want to notice that when you're out in the world, that the hips are maybe just a little tipped forward and there's just a little tension here, and that's shortening the pelvic floor, and that can disrupt the function of the pelvic floor. So playing, once you know where to start, once you know how to explore the body with the basics, then it's about your intuition, your own body knowledge. You really do know your body very well based on sensation. It's just a matter of kind of trusting it and listening to those quiet sensations. So thank you for that reflection, Raven. And I saw that Marcella said like it felt like a massage to my bladder. And I wanted to add that this breath, how we're supposed to breathe, both the intelligent design breath and the flower breath, just the regular intelligent design breath massages the organs, because that's how we're designed. And if you have digestive issues, evacuation issues, like gas and bloating, obviously there's a number of things that contribute to that. But if you have tension in the belly all the time, and that belly is not getting the massage and lift on every breath, then it is going to disrupt your digestive process. So a lot of the time when I have clients who are trying to heal pelvic floor and start to re-regulate their breath and reorganize their breath, they also notice that constipation improves, digestion improves, because our organs are expecting this massage. And our back is expecting that massage. So thoracic spine mobility and lower back tightness and all of that stuff is improved when we breathe in a more organized, intelligently designed way. So all of that is impacted by just simply these breaths. Recommendations for daily practice, how many flower breaths or how many minutes? Okay, so what I suggest as far as self-care is that you utilize this breath in an intuitive way, that there is no number that you cannot check a box. You have to be embodied. You have to practice listening to your body and saying, oh, I feel a heaviness. I feel a tightness. I feel a tightness in the mind, and I can see how it's shaking out into my body. And I want you to use that information to guide your practice. It is really, it's very like ingrained in us that we need to measure our food, measure our breaths, measure our exercises. And I think it removes the embodiment. I think our body will definitely tell us what we need. What I would suggest in a measurable way is that you create a space for yourself, whether you have 10 minutes a day or 40 minutes a day or an hour a day, where you close the door, there's no devices, no interrupting frequency, and you are with yourself. You can dance naked in the mirror. You can release the pelvic floor with your hands. You can just hold your cervix with your fingers and just breathe into the cervix and feel the safety that you're cultivating with your female body, with releasing that space in the body. You can simply roll around on a foam roller. You can simply do the breaths that I guided you to. But there is no possible way for me to know what your body needs 10 breaths a day, 100 breaths a day. I do know that you need time alone with your body to hear it tell you. And so that's what I was thinking, that you need time with your body and it will guide. Okay, I know we're late. So I was just gonna do a closing gamma breath unless anyone else wants to jump in and ask or say anything. Okay, so I want everyone to hold this intention of self-care. I'm gonna do this thing for myself. I'm gonna carve out this time for myself. I really liked the way that flower breath felt. I feel inspired to explore my body in a different way. Hold that intention in your body. Feel what it feels like. Feel how, as you hold the intention, it has shifted your breath, your tissue, the personality of your face. Relax into that frequency that you're holding of this intention, of knowing what that will do for you and why it's important and how much you love and value yourself in order to stay devoted to that practice, not disciplined, devoted to self. And we will do gamma breath. All the breaths are 3 seconds, medium breaths. Mouth, mouth. Mouth, nose. Nose, nose. Nose, mouth. Mouth, mouth. Mouth, nose. Nose, nose. Nose, mouth. Mouth, mouth. Mouth, nose. Nose, nose. Nose, mouth. Mouth, mouth. In mouth and hold. You just hold a comfortable level of pressure for a comfortable amount of time. Allowing this information, intention, awareness to integrate. Noticing the gentle pressure in the body as you hold your breath. Exhaling whenever the body asks. Turning back into the frequency of your body in this state. carving out these new neural pathways. This is my frequency. This is how I feel, unobstructed, not overstimulated. This is how I feel without disruption. This is my particular intelligent design in this moment. This is my baseline. Return to this as often as possible. Notice when there's too many things happening in the mind, and just take a breath in an organized fashion with an open throat and diaphragm, and feel the nervous system and the thoughts shake out. You can come back to this space whenever you're ready. Just want to say thank you so much. This is sort of a taste of the first module of my upcoming course, where I go deeper into how to care for the deep core, the pelvic floor, to notice the nervous system's pull on our posture and tissue, so that we can heal our power, our strength, our physical strength, and also our connection to pleasure and receiving. So that course is called Women's Rights. I can send Raquel the information to send to any of you who are interested. And of course, if you need one-on-one support, just reach out. My website is amaliamarialee.com. And I really appreciate all of your energy and presence here, and just being open to this work.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Amalia. That was so amazing. So much wisdom, the way you embody it with such grace. I could really feel this, like so many distinctions and new awareness in my body. I'm so grateful for you sharing this with all of us. And I love how it combines with Gamma, and just how all the awareness synthesizes together. Thank you so much. And yeah, we will be posting this video after. So I'll be posting it on my YouTube, Raquel Star, and then Amalia. I don't know how you'll be sharing it, but with your forum and links, or on your site or pages. And yeah, definitely I encourage you to work with Amalia. I'm definitely reaping so many benefits and feeling so much more resourced in my own essence from this work. And again, thank you so much for being with us today for a Gamma Monday, Gamma Rooted Woman Monday at that. And I'll stop the recording in a moment. If anybody wants to afterwards share, or any questions, or forum for a few moments, if you have time, Amalia, we could do that. Or if anyone still wants to stay. And wishing you all such a blessed day. Thank you so much again, Amalia, for being with us. It's amazing.
Thank you.
See.